60 years after its founding, Israel has emerged as a modern and prosperous country, true to its agricultural and industrial roots, but also on the vanguard of cutting-edge technologies and sophisticated financial markets. But as in all burgeoning economies, there are those for whom prosperity remains painfully out of reach. For nearly 500,000 Israelis living below the poverty line, daily survival continues to be a struggle.
The situation that I encountered with my wife was something that really we couldn't fathom, that people in Israel, Jewish people in Israel, live in such poverty. But it was quite moving and was really very difficult to see such a situation. The first house that we went into was somewhere in the Jerusalem neighborhood, an older neighborhood, and we saw a family that lived in, it was probably a room that was maybe 10 by 15 at most. That was the entire house. It was almost, it seemed to be almost in a cave. My wife and myself, we looked at each other and we said, this is really the place, we got to help these type of people.
Out of the 7 million people living in Israel, nearly 500,000 people each year rely on food aid from non-profit organizations. And of those, 22,500 families are forced to rely on food aid programs on a daily basis.
We feed people who don't have enough money to put food on the table. We give infant formula to babies who don't have enough. We do Meals on Wheels for people who cannot cook for themselves. And we have a very, very large Big Brother and Big Sister program for those children who don't have a mother or a father so that they can grow into a productive adulthood.
In addition to food concerns, families living below the poverty line are struggling to obtain other necessities like shoes, eyeglasses, and dental work.
The most immediate problem is food, and food has to be taken care of right away. And what we decided was that we do have to take care of the food, but we also have to take care of those effects of poverty that are so traumatic and very often so devastating, not only to the family, but to society in general.
Along with poverty generally goes a lack of understanding of medicine and health issues. I can see kids that come into the office that have sometimes 3-year-old, 4-year-olds have 8, 10, 12 teeth that need to be filled. And they're suffering from infections and they're having pain. All the time we see it. One of the nice things that Yad Eliezer is doing is they've actually opened up dental clinics that are helping the people who need it, these very large families, particularly the children.
Impoverished families in Israel are not without hope, but due to a declining global economy and the effects of rising fuel prices on food, the work of charitable organizations in Israel is more important than ever.
Besides that, there's been a global rise in food prices, so that everything that we purchase is much, much more expensive. For example, last year we purchased bottles of oil for 4 shekels apiece. Now they are approximately 7 shekels. When you multiply that by 10,000 or 12,000 bottles, it makes it much, much more expensive, and it does not allow us to do the things that we were doing. We are no longer able to feed every single family every month. That's what we want to do, that's what we want to go back to, and that's why we need so much help.
And we felt that through our investigation, and we saw that, that 90% plus of our money would be going to help the needy. And so, and very, very little cost of the money that comes in to the organization is going to overhead costs and to administrative costs. So we felt that this was really the proper place to put our money.
With the help of donors and volunteers, Yad Eliezer is one organization working to alleviate the devastating effects of poverty in Israel.
To my wife and to my friends, that became the most important element, that this was an organization that you could believe in and that you could work for and that you could contribute to, and that it did what it said it was meant to do, and it created a real difference in the lives of people that it touched. It wasn't just donating money to an organization or delivering food on their behalf. It was actually getting involved in saving people's lives and helping them to exist in a way that they couldn't without this organization's assistance.
Yad Eliezer is the largest food provider for Israel, combining more than 10,000 volunteers and $20 million annually in donations to feed the hungry and deal with the ripple effects of poverty.
Aליעזר, they helped me to bring food to my children and to feed them, and without them I can't do it.
With nearly 3 decades of service, Aליעזר will continue to combat poverty in Israel. But it can't be done without the support of donors and volunteers like you.
Charity is an interesting concept in the Jewish tradition. The word for charity in Hebrew is tzedakah. It is not really translated as charity. It is rather the real meaning of the word tzedakah is justice. It is just and right that every child be given enough to eat. It is just and right that every family be able to put food on the table. And that's what Aליעזer's mission is, and that is what we try to do more than anything else. There's a phrase in Hebrew that says, Lo alecha ligmor.
Out of the 7 million people living in Israel, nearly 500,000 people each year rely on food aid from non-profit organizations. And of those, 22,500 families are forced to rely on food aid programs on a daily basis. Aליעזר is the largest food provider for Israel, combining more than 10,000 volunteers and $20 million annually in donations to feed the hungry and deal with the ripple effects of poverty. Aליעזר will continue to combat poverty in Israel, but it can't be done without the support of donors and volunteers like you.
There's a phrase in Hebrew that says, Lo alecha ligmor. You don't have to finish anything, but every person has to start. And every person has to do whatever is possible to make sure that this world becomes a better place.
To find out more and pledge your support, visit